Okay, welcome to Split Your Head podcast. I am Bob, and today's special guest is Jared Auner from Mondo Macabro, who are just about to embark on their yearly Halloween sale that is even more special than previous years. Jared also runs Neon Eagle Video that specializes in Asian exploitation and action gems, which we'll get to at some point, but for now it's all about Mondo Macabro. Easily my favorite boutique Blu-ray label, Mondos are a company that dedicated to restoring and releasing some of the most oddball yet captivating obscurities from around the world. Their focus is mainly horror, but within that umbrella genre term, you can find plenty of exploitation flicks, Eurotrash thrillers, wild erotica, and art house oddities. So to sum it up, what makes them so special though is that their curation is airtight, where the thrill of blind buying can yield even more thrilling rewards and keep you coming back for more. So enough out of me. I could go on all day gushing over this label. I just want to say welcome, Jared. It's awesome that you could come on today. I appreciate it. How are you?
No, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. This is really cool.
Yeah. So with Mondo, what would you say your role is? Like I feel like you kind of wear a lot of hats. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, my day job, the thing that most people would know me from is I do the mail order stuff. I run the website, Big Cartel site. And, if you've ever ordered from the Big Cartel, whether it's, a limited edition or just a random order, it's me who's packed it up for you and answered your emails about it and all that stuff. So that's my day job. That's the thing that I kind of take care of the most of, and that's what I get paid for. I do the social media stuff. And then I do the more interesting stuff for me is I will sometimes negotiate with rights owners to get movies, sign movies. I have a lot of input into the curation of the label. And, I do a lot of wrangling of extras, talent involved with that and stuff like that. So a little dab of everything, not super involved in the technical aspects of that. That's mostly Pete Toombs or stuff that we farm out. But lots of other stuff all surrounding the releases and how they come out.
Right. So is it just you and Pete then that run the label?
Yeah, it is basically just us two. There's the other co-founder of Mondo Macabro is Andy Stark, who is Pete's original partner and is still sort of involved. He's just very off screen. He's a producer for the most part now. He does a lot of the Ben Wheatley movies and the Peter Strickland movies and stuff like that. He's a producer for almost every movie they've done. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Produced Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor. So he's he's kind of a big time producer now, but he was Pete's original partner back in the day and is still sort of tangentially involved. He's still like an investor in Mondo Macabro and everything, and one of the co-owners. But really it's he and I, Pete and I, we run all the day-to-day operations. We do a lot. We farm out a lot of stuff, some technical stuff, like authoring and things like that, authoring the discs and some restoration stuff. But yeah, just day-to-day, it is, just me and Pete. Yeah. And all the orders are all done by me. I don't have like a staff of people. So people wonder why sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get orders out. It's because it's just me. So give me a break.
And correct me if I'm wrong. We are actually getting an exclusive look at your workshop. This is where you're conducting the interview, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't quite expecting this to be on camera, but this is sort of a little bit of my work area. Like,
surprise!
It's still messy from the last mail out. So
which was
so sorry everybody. Sometimes it's cleaner than this.
No, this is some VIP privileged information about the label. I think people will want to see
behind the scenes
where the magic happens, where the bubble wrap is kept.
Yeah, where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So Pete, it's kind of like his label. It started with him. He wrote a book. He did like a TV series, right? That's kind of the conception of Mondo Macabro. So it's interesting. Like I feel like the book and the TV series is sort of how it spawned the label is like the best way to describe what you guys dabble in, which is the wild side of world cinema. But it does feel like there's something beyond that that makes it a Mondo Macabro film. And I've heard you in different interviews sort of like put your finger on it, but like, could you elaborate on that? Do you think, like, is there something that you could explain as Mondo Macabro's specific kind of brand?
I mean, it's more we know it when we see it, you know?
Okay.
I
like
mean,
that.
it's definitely been a process. Like, yeah, it's definitely been a process that sometimes a movie will come up and we'll think about, oh, is this something we want to do? You know, and it might be that we actually really do love the film, but we think about it and then it just seems like, oh, it doesn't seem like a Mondo Macabro movie. Like there was one time we were thinking about some Eurocrime, some Italian Eurocrime stuff,
like Poliziotteschi. Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah. And then I think ultimately we were just like, no, that doesn't quite fit. That doesn't. I mean, I really love those movies. I think they're really cool. But it just didn't feel right for what we do. Which is more sort of horror oriented or erotica oriented. Sort of, you sort of touched on it in your intro. That was a pretty good description of the kind of stuff that we do. Sort of horror, erotica, exploitation, art house. The sort of blending of those sort of things. Or sort of like the exotica, international exotica. I mean, sort of moving from weird parts of the world that you may not expect. Because I think we would do like a Turkish version of a Poliziotteschi movie.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've seen many Turkish movies.
No, none.
None at all.
I don't think so. Like, what would be?
Well, the Turkish. Like, I mean, there's like Turkish Exorcist or Turkish Star Wars or things like that. I mean, they did a lot of like remakes, sort of. Well, the Turkish Star Wars is not a remake of Star Wars. It just uses footage from Star Wars.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite movies. It's amazing.
Really? Okay. So I have to see this then.
Yeah, the Turkish stuff just has a very weird flair to it. That's like a real super like micro budget. Flair, and it's very, the 60s and 70s movies are very 60s and 70s, and they borrow footage from other movies and soundtrack stuff. Anyway, the long and short of that is that they have their own sort of weird exotic flair, and that's sort of part of what we do too. Is we try to deal with movies that are sort of outside of the typical Western when we can. I mean, we do a lot of European movies too, of course.
Well, with the Turkish films, Turkish Wizard of Oz, that was one that was on my radar, but it always seemed to be, to me anyways, like a so bad it's good film. And that's something that I find you guys don't really dabble in, which is, well, I don't want to say surprising, but like you guys managed to kind of like sidestep a lot of that stuff,
I think to a certain extent we've done some of that stuff, especially early on. Okay. I mean, I think you could argue that some of the Indonesian stuff is sort of. I know some people don't like that term. So bad it's good. Yeah. I don't have a problem with it because there is a certain enjoyment that you can get from a movie that is sort of doesn't live up to sort of mainstream Western standards for filmmaking. Or done at a very low budget. They're just working with meager means. And I think that can be fascinating and you can laugh at it. And I don't think that's like insulting or laughing. Like, I mean, I think a lot of people kind of have a problem with sort of making fun of a movie in a sort of mystery science theater way.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's quite what it is, And I think we have done a few of those movies, like Lady Terminator. Do you know that one?
Love Lady Terminator.
Right. Lady Terminator.
So good. So
it is. It's amazing. It's an amazing movie. But you could argue because it is so cheaply done and it's ripping off the Terminator and it's, it's badly dubbed and all this stuff. You could argue that that's a so bad it's good movie. I think it's so bad it's utter genius.
I think it makes the Terminator look boring.
It does, yeah. I would watch Lady Terminator over, especially the Terminator, like any Terminator after the first Terminator movie, for sure.
Yes, 100%.
But so yeah, and then other things like For Your Height Only, the Filipino.
Haven't seen that one. Yeah, I gotta
Yeah,
check that
so
out.
that's like a Filipino, midget secret agent movie.
Okay.
And it's super cheesy.
Yeah.
So we do a little bit of that. But again,
Okay.
it's sort of, if it has that more exotic flair, if it's from a country like the Philippines or Indonesia or Turkey,
Right.
we might be more interested in it. It might be more interesting to us than,
Yeah.
a super low budget American or British or even Italian movie.
Yeah. Well, it kind of makes me think of like, I'm sure you're a fan of Claudio Fragassi, and
Oh, sure, yeah.
I think the thing I really love about his films is that it's not even so much that they're poorly done. It's just like his attempt at capturing America is such a bizarre kind of translation in a way. It's like,
It
what?
is.
That's what you think America is? And
I know.
it's
That's
fascinating.
really fun. It is. It's really weird, a really skewed take. And apparently he seems like quite sincere in that he thinks that's no, America. This is exactly how an American teenager would talk.
Right.
And it's not at all. It's not at all. And that's part of the fun. And there's no reason why I think we can't enjoy that at that level,
Totally. Yeah. Have you seen Night Killer?
I have. This is Severin released that, right?
Yeah. Sorry, we won't talk too much about that one then. But
Yeah.
I love that that's his like an attempt at an Ingmar Bergman film. Like that's what he says in the bonus interviews. Is that he's
really?
like,
I haven't watched any of the bonus features, but that's really
amazing. He does seem a lot more grounded in these interviews. Like he's kind of aware now that a lot people are laughing at what he does or what he did. But he did say that the initial attempt was my wife and I, Rosilla, wanted to do an Ingmar Bergman-esque psychological film, and it was about as he said, the rape of the mind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. He missed the mark a little bit, I think, with that.
Landed somewhere else, though,
Although, again, I think that is kind of fascinating. And I think that's what marks out a lot of movies from that era from sort of cult movies now, because a lot of cult movies now are looking to cultivate a self-conscious
nice
cult. Yeah, right. So a sort of self-consciousness. Whereas something like that, they're trying to make something serious, and they fail miserably. But what they succeed at is something else. And I think that's what makes a lot of movies from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s of that type really valuable.
Mm-hmm.
That they have maybe grander ambitions than they can ever achieve. Yeah. And what they end up achieving is something that's still kind of a work of genius, but it's not what they intended to. And there's a special magic there that
absolutely,
it's hard to replicate when it's, a film school student, trying to very consciously make something weird and culty,
Yeah. And I mean, that kind of, I guess, sums up why you guys generally don't do a lot of new work, like new films. Except for which, if we get into like recommendations later, the Bertrand Mandico collection, that's going to be one that I suggest people pick up at the sale because
they should.
Special,
we still have a bunch of them left too, so I would appreciate. Go.
Oh, absolutely.
You can try and sell that one for us, will you?
Yeah, I've been working on the streets. Let's just say that. Like I've been trying to recruit people because he is such a unique filmmaker, and he's kind of a hard sell. I find I show his stuff to people, and they usually say, "Wow, I love the puppetry, I love the imagery, but I don't like the narrative." But I've had a few friends that are just like, "Everything about this rules," and that's. Then I'm like, okay, well then there's more of you out there, and he's still going too. So I'm stoked to see.
Has a new movie coming out soon. I think.
Yeah, would we expect to see that coming out from Mondo? Or?
No, probably not.
I
think a lot of his stuff seems to come out through Altered Innocence.
Right,
which is a fine label.
They're excellent,
And in fact, sort of that release was sort of a co-release with altered medicine.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that it just sort of came about. I think Mandico was a fan of Mondo Macabro.
Of course.
And
That makes sense.
literally, yeah, isn't that cool? And literally, he contacted Pete with the idea of doing that collection
Awesome.
years ago, years and years. It was years in the making. It was like 5 or 6 years, something like that in the making. And again, just it wasn't something that we pursued or even thought about doing. He came to us. But I think we agreed that it was a really interesting thing to do. For one thing, the movies did ring as Mondo Macabro movies to us. They seemed like something that fit in with our brand. And it was also different. It was also, we don't do many contemporary movies, and we don't do many, we've never done a short film collection. So it was an opportunity to sort of go outside a little bit of our comfort zone. While at the same time, something that was very much still part of our kind of viewpoint, part of our vision.
As you were saying earlier, there's just that specific Mondo Macabro brand. You can't fully put into words, but you see something, you go, that's for the label. And he kind of checked that box more or less, his short films at least. But I do see, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think his work in general is I would, if we had the opportunity to do his new movie, I probably would. I'd probably say, yeah, let's do it.
Nice. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, because to me, it makes sense that he would connect with you with the label because like he did Borrow in a Box. And I feel like Valerian Boracek, his films, if they weren't put by Arrow and you guys had the opportunity, I'm sure you would put those out. Those seem to me like Mondo-esque films.
Yeah, well, Pete talked about Boracek in his first book, Immoral Tales, about European.
Right, okay.
So there was a chapter about Boracek, and in fact, that was the first time I think I was sort of vaguely aware of The Beast at that time, but that his book was the first time that I sort of became truly aware of his total oeuvre, his work, his work in general.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love his films.
Yeah.
I think it was we were offered The Beast and Immoral Tales, but it was after they had come out from Arrow in the UK. And I was like, the audience is tapped for that because I had bought that Arrow UK box set. And I mean, tons of people I know had already, and ended up. I think Arrow put that, or did somebody else put those out in the U.S. Without much fanfare.
Criterion, maybe?
No, it wasn't Criterion. I don't think they've ever done any Boracek.
Really? Okay.
Boracek's too wild for Criterion. Boracek's
maybe
untamed. He's too weird.
Yeah, could be.
I would say my favorite Boracek movies are Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Miss Osborne.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, so good.
It's a masterpiece. I love it.
It rules.
And then Story of Sin. Do you know that one?
I haven't seen that one.
I mean, it's mostly just sort of a melodrama, a sort of historical period set melodrama. But it's so good aesthetically. It's like one of the most perfect movies ever, I think. It's so, so great. And I love Eastern European movies. I love Polish films. So that's his one feature film that he made in his native Poland. So it's really special. But
okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I really
Arrow put that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do they still have the box set of all of his films?
I don't know if they have the box set. They released a lot of those that were in the box set individually. Okay. And then Story of Sin came out on its own, just like the Dr. Jekyll movie.
Right, yeah, because I have the Dr. Jekyll. So, but I'll pick up the Story of Sin at some point.
Yeah, it's a really great movie.
Okay, cool. I feel like we are talking too much though about films that aren't from Mondo. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay because honestly, like I'm a big fan of this stuff in general, just like you are. Like,
yeah.
So I don't mind talking about other labels and stuff, that because I'm a collector and I'm just a big fan of weird foreign movies in general,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
totally.
fun to
Same,
talk about
same.
this stuff in general. But yeah, we
Yeah.
probably should talk more
Yeah.
about Mondo.
All right, let's get right to the sale. So basically, just like every year, you guys, is it mainly the entire catalog is up for like a step down in discount? Like it's not the same discount across the board, more or less, right? But
It's not, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll do the whole catalog will be on sale. It kind of depends on like how well it's sold for us or how new it is, that sort of thing. We'll
Okay.
make I'll make that call essentially probably like the week before it happens. I'll just
Wow.
go
Okay.
through and I just go through and just
Yeah.
what has been selling. That maybe I'll just knock a few bucks off. What's not been selling, I'll like slash it.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that we'll
Yeah.
be doing different this year, though, is that I'll be really marking down the shipping costs, the shipping fees.
Okay.
So I'm hoping that we'll just get enough sales that it'll sort of offset that a little bit.
Okay.
But yeah, for the first time, it'll be really cheap, especially domestically for U.S. orders. That stuff it will be much cheaper than it usually is.
So it doesn't
Which we
affect
haven't really
me
done
because I live in Canada. So
Right. Oh, that's right. Yeah. It'll
that's
be.
okay. That's okay.
I'll mark down international fees as well. I just can't as much because it's ever more expensive to ship from the U.S. than anywhere, even Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sorry.
it is what it is. It's easy. Stuff gets to Canada at least.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of trouble. Like, if there are any of our European customers who are watching this or listening, I'm sorry. I have nothing to do with the fact that your order seems to go missing for large chunks of time before it actually ends up being delivered, if it ends up being delivered at all. So sorry about that. We've been having a lot of troubles with Europe, especially right now. So.
More than usual, like recently?
Yeah, a little bit more than usual. Yeah. I don't know what's going on. I actually have the people who do our international shipping are looking into it right now.
Oh, geez.
But yeah, so it's crazy. But again, it doesn't matter. We'll keep sending stuff out. For the like 98%, there's no trouble. But it's just, maybe at one time there was like 0.5%. Now it's like 2%.
Oh, Jesus.
That we have trouble with. So
yeah. But the main event is this bundle, right? The Flash bundle.
Yeah. So every Halloween sale, we do like a sort of our kind of headlining bunch of new limited edition releases. Okay. So like last year we had the Bollywood box set and the Dr. Caligari UHD. That was a big hit. Although those took a long time to produce and get out, and I know there was some grumbling about that, and righteously so. It took too long. We knew. I knew when they went on sale that it was going to take a while. It took longer even than I thought.
Okay.
So hopefully it's not going to be the same thing this year, but we won't start shipping them out till December.
That sounds reasonable.
Possibly January if we get too far into December and they haven't arrived yet.
Okay.
Just the shipping out during Christmas is terrifying. It's horrible.
Yes. I totally get that. Yeah.
So there will be a bundle this time, and the sort of the thing that we'll be doing different is we'll be doing a flash pre-sale on October 20th.
Right.
Yeah, so that let me.
So this is coming out on the 17th, so that will be 3 days after.
Right. So the 20th, that's a Friday. So that'll be the flash pre-sale, and then the actual sale itself will start on the 31st. So what's different about this flash pre-sale, for anyone who's listening who hasn't heard about this previously, is that one of the movies we're doing, Death Squad. We have only a very limited amount of UHD versions, 4K versions of it. So Death Squad is an early 80s or mid 80s exploitation action film thing. Really super, super sleazy.
Okay.
Directed by Max Picas, who directed a lot of French erotic films and crime films and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, but we could only get, initially it was only going to be 500 of these UHD editions,
Okay.
but now it'll be 750. We
That's
were
pretty
able
good.
to up the amount to 750.
Yeah.
So the only way though you'll be able to get this limited edition UHD version is as part of this flash pre-order.
Okay.
So, and as part of a bundle. You can only buy it as part of the bundle. This is sort of it makes it easier on me to ship them out if I'm just shipping out the same thing over and over again. I can do it really fast.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons, like the most recent one we did with the 2 Japanese movies, I finished it in record time because most people just bought the bundle. And so it was easy to get out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it makes it easier on me if I'm just sending out the bundle, but it's also like to make it something special for people who buy the bundle every time or have consistently purchased everything we put out. So this is like a way almost to say thank you. You're going to get a special version of this one movie that's just a one and done UHD version. It won't ever be reprinted.
Wow. Okay.
So so it's only 750 copies. That's all there will be from us.
Yeah.
And then after that, it will be back. The title will be on sale again on the 31st. It will be part of a bundle or separately, just as a Blu-ray, just as one of the red case Blu-rays.
Okay. Cool.
So that's sort of something we're doing a little bit different. So there'll be 4 releases in total. There'll be one other UHD release, a Euro horror movie that I've teased a little bit.
Okay.
That's going to be, it's super secret though, and I'm not going to reveal that till the very end or till right before the sale goes live, like a day or two before.
Okay, so just wanted to clarify. Now, normally, like another label like Vinegar Syndrome, they do the flash bundle pre-sales where they don't say the titles when you order it. But in this case, you guys, like on the 20th, are going to reveal all the titles.
Yeah, for sure. Nothing will be secret when it actually goes on sale.
Oh, that's great. Okay,
so maybe like the Wednesday or Thursday before that Friday on the 20th.
Yeah.
I will, on our social media and everywhere else, will reveal what that title is. And then maybe like the week or so before that, I'll do all the reveals for the other 3 titles, including the cover and specs for the Death Squad UHD.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay. So you said there's 4 releases.
Yes.
I know you've mentioned one of the other ones already, which is the Special Silencers.
Yes.
Which is an early 80s Indonesian film. From what I've read about it, it sounds amazing.
It's a crazy movie. Yeah. Again, one of those ones that I think maybe could be considered so bad it's good. I mean, there's like infamously a scene where somebody is torturing someone. They've got someone captive. These like evil drug lords. They're torturing someone, and one of their methods of torture is to take off their stinky shoe and rub it in their face. That's how evil they are. The stinky shoe, and they go, it's I mean, very infamous. Lots of scenes like that, and of course, the main gist of the movie is like there's these little pills that they force down people, and they make like tree branches erupt out.
Right.
It's a very primitive version of the Alien special effects from the first Alien with the chest burster.
See, it makes me think of Troll 2, though. Because Troll 2 has a lot of stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Because, they're making them into vegetable matter or something.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So
it's something sort of similar to that for sure. Yeah.
But it's kind of more of like a martial arts film, though.
Yeah, and there's a lot. It's not quite martial arts, but it's as much an action film. I mean, and there are like actual Indonesian martial arts movies, and the star of the film, Barry Prima, was someone who did know kung fu and could, had training and did lots of martial arts stuff in movies. Okay. And I think there are some fights and stuff. that are sort of martial artsy, but it's more just sort of wild action. And then there's this horror aspect, and it's kind of sleazy and weird and trashy.
Okay.
A very good time.
Yeah.
If anyone out there has been sort of getting into the kind of the weirder Hong Kong movies that have been coming out,
Yes.
from
Okay.
all the labels, but you've never seen an Indonesian movie, they're sort of along the same lines, just cheaper and weirder even than the Hong
Okay.
Kong movies.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking like a Mystics and Bali kind of situation, or
Yeah, Mystics and Bali is, of course, one of our sort of flagship Indonesian titles, and it's just one of the greatest movies ever made.
it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Citizen Kane of flying witch head movies. So
True. Yeah.
yeah, it's really amazing. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not
yeah.
Special Silencers isn't quite on that level, but
okay.
it is crazy fun. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. And so then the other two releases, there's 4 in total. So we got Special Sensors, Death Squad,
Right.
a 70s Euro horror, which you will absolutely not reveal.
No,
but
that's
from what I understand, the hype is off the Richter scale. Like people are, but you wrote something, or did you say something, or someone wrote something about how when it gets revealed, someone is going to have a breakdown or something? Or...
Well, I think there's just kind of one guy that I can think of. I mean, it's an oft requested title, but there's like one guy that I can think of that is always sort of requesting it and asking about it. And he's just going to he'll be very happy.
Okay. And you can't give like any, what could we get? Like, well, you said you're European. Could we get like a country?
Spain.
Okay. Huh.
It's a Spanish film. Yeah.
70s Spanish.
Spanish.
You guys have never released it before?
I'll leave that sort of, if I say something about that could lead people, and I want to leave a little bit of mystery for this. So, So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to give any more hints. It's a really great movie, though. I think a very quintessential, fun, weird, cheesy European horror film. So,
okay,
from Spain. That's the tidbit exclusive for Europe. It's from Spain.
It's from Spain. Okay.
Yeah.
And then so that's 70s Euro horror, but then you're also doing a 2 Spanish film set. Is that what that is?
Right. And that Euro horror it's UHD. It's going to be a UHD.
Right. You said that.
So we haven't done many UHDs yet, so that's fun. But then the other set is also going to be 2 Spanish movies.
Okay.
In one set. So this is going to be, it's the most obscure probably of this particular batch of films.
Oh, this batch of films. Okay.
Yeah. So it's pretty obscure. Honestly, I haven't watched the movies yet myself.
Okay.
So take that. So I would have a hard time sort of selling them in advance. Other than, Pete loves them. They're movies that Pete Toombs signed and has been wanting to do them forever. I will tell this hint about them is that another label within the last year released another movie by the same director that these 2 movies are made. Is that is that vague enough for you? But
well, no, I mean, I immediately think Eloy de la Iglesias.
You might think that, and I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm just trying to think
but I will say that they're much more obscure than any movies.
Well, that's the thing, because at this point, is he even that obscure,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of his movies have come out in the last couple of years.
Some really, really good ones too.
Yeah, for sure. Severin and Altered Innocence again have done a lot of his movies, and maybe Vinegar Syndrome. Actually, no, it's not one of his movies. It's a different director, a bit more obscure than De La Iglesias.
I would.
But one movie of his has been released by a different label within the last year or so.
Was it a horror movie?
Yes.
Huh.
I mean, his movies are sort of, from what I understand, and I've actually seen the other one that has been released by the other label. They're horror or thriller movies. They have a bit more of an art housey vibe. It's actually not too far from De La Iglesias in that sense. But
Okay.
they're I guess in current parlance, elevated horror.
Ooh.
And just in the sense of the sort of art, there's an art house aspect to them,
Okay.
or a more serious intention behind them.
Sophisticated.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Very, very sophisticated.
But one of them is maybe I misunderstood this, but it said that one of them is designation. Is that right?
Well, I guess there's some confusion because originally there was going to be 5 releases for this bundle. There was going to be 5.
Oh, right, okay.
And so the 5th one was going to be one of the S Classificida, or wherever it is.
Okay.
For people who don't know, that was in the after the death of Generalissimo Franco in Spain. Censorship started to relax a little bit, and in the late 70s, there was a specific classification for horror and exploitation movies that had a lot of nudity in them, and it was the S.
Okay.
It was the S classificata, the S classification.
Yeah, it's almost like a category 3 in a way.
Exactly, very much like, or an X rating in the US.
Okay.
So other examples from that would be like Satan's Blood, which we released on DVD, and Vinegar Syndrome released on Blu-ray.
Right. Okay.
Which is a really terrific movie. Highly recommended it.
Okay.
And then Human Animals is one that we did from a couple years ago. That was officially the first volume in our sort of series that we're sort of very slowly kind of getting stuff out. But we do have another one coming. It is still coming. It's just not coming as part of the Halloween sale. It'll be early next year, and it's a sick one. It's sick.
Like,
it's
in
really
what way sick?
I can't. I'm not going to go.
Come on, Jared.
It's really potentially very offensive and disgusting, and but good wholesome fun nonetheless.
Well, okay, so because would you say like worse than Silip?
Yeah, because Silip again has has serious intention behind it.
Sure.
Silip has Elwood Perez, the guy who made Silip, is a legitimate auteur in the Philippines. His movies, a lot of his movies are well respected. And it just so happens that he made Silip in a time when censorship in the Philippines was relaxing, again, as in Spain, like I just spoke of. And people were able to get away with outrageous things. And so, and it was a commercial thing to do outrageous things. And so that's why sort of Silip is the way it is. But this movie is just straight out exploitation. It's just straight out trash in the best sense, Did
you wait? But it's an S classification, so it's from Spain.
Yeah, the movie that we've been talking about, not Silip. The movie.
No. Sorry. But I'm just relating it back. You're saying that this is part of the S classification series, which will be only Spanish films then.
Yes, yeah. The S Clasificita series is just Spanish films, again made in I think it was roughly like 77 to 83 or 84 or something like that. After 84, because there were so many hardcore movies being made, they sort of revised the classification system.
Okay.
And so that went away. So it's specifically like in that 6-7 year period. Movies. Like if you've ever seen any of the Jess Franco Golden films.
No, I haven't.
Period, like we did Sinister, Dr. Orloff, and The Night Has 1,000 Desires. Those are both S classifications.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but they're not hardcore, right? Like it's all simulated more or less, right? Okay.
Yeah, they're soft, Okay. I mean, some of them get sort of close, and I think the one that we're going to be doing next year does have a hardcore variant, and we will be releasing in degraded standard definition form. Okay. We will have that cut as part of the package.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. It gets even crazier.
It does, yeah. And that's It
Wow.
actually, I think it works better as the softer version than it does in the harder version. But
Yeah, I usually go that route when I have the option, like A Woman's Torment. When I got my hands on that, I've only watched the R-rated version, so I'm usually like,
right,
that's good enough for
yeah.
me.
Yeah. I ended up watching the hardcore version of that.
Okay.
And maybe I wondered if I should have watched the softcore version, if I would have liked it a bit more. That's
Oh,
a
you didn't
Roberta
like it?
Findlay movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Roberta Findlay. Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
it
so
was
so on it.
interesting, but it was just okay for me.
Yeah, yeah. I did an episode earlier this summer with this woman, Jetta Weinstein, all on the Finleys. So if you're
Hmm.
interested in them, you should check that out.
Oh, cool.
She's just basically like a walking encyclopedia on them. So she knew so much about their lives and everything, and we covered a bunch of their films. But
I
anyways,
love
yeah.
I love the Michael Finley, the '60s roughies that he made.
Well, they just announced the trilogy, was it,
Yeah,
or like
yeah, the
quadrilogy?
Flesh trilogy. Yeah,
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 yeah.
from Vinegar Syndrome and Dystropix. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then, like, all the money that comes in from Mondo, you just immediately go spend it on other movies.
Well, I mean, it definitely helps that
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna, it's my job. It's, I'm able to have some discretionary income, and that's,
Right,
yeah,
right.
that's where a good amount of it goes. Yeah.
I get it, man. I get it. It's all good.
As I keep telling people, when I do interviews and stuff, I'm no different than anyone else. I just got lucky, and I made a business proposal to someone who ran a label, and they said, "Yeah, sure, okay." And it really, I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm a collector like anybody else. I'm
Yeah.
just as much a fan as anybody else. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But that's a good thing though, because then I think you really care about the curation, and it's probably a lot more exciting to you than someone who has no actual interest in collecting films.
Well, I would hope so. And I mean, it is really exciting. And I love the idea of like picking out a movie and it eventually comes out in a nice edition. I love
Yeah.
being part of this whole world. It is very exciting. It's very gratifying
Mhm.
to sort of shepherd something from just an idea of like, oh yeah, I would like to do this, to here it is in my hand.
Right, right.
It's
Yeah.
fun. As a fan, it's very gratifying work for sure.
Yeah. And with Mondo's like almost very like specific and highly curated brand, it does remind me a lot of like a record label,
Mm.
like not necessarily like a very like mainstream record label obviously,
No,
but
I know what you mean.
just when you know of a label where you're like, "Oh, I'll check out like any band they put out." Do you know what I mean? Like I like that kind of
Absolutely.
level. So,
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I mean, as a teenager and in my 20s, I was much more into music than I was into movies.
yeah,
And I was
same.
always sort of fascinated by indie labels.
Mhm.
And a lot of that sort of a lot of that sort of curation aspect to it is I sort of think of in those terms, like
Yeah.
that those were my clear influences coming into this,
Oh,
coming
cool.
into movie collecting was, like something like Sub Pop Records way back in the early '90s, or
Mhm.
later, a little bit later, Drag City Records,
Right, right.
for indie rock and stuff like that, and now more like Light in the Attic, which is a Seattle-based big reissue label. They're sort of really fascinating for me, and
They do
so that,
the comps, right?
they do a
I th-
lot of compilation stuff.
okay, I
Yeah.
think I've heard of those ones. They're like regional based. Is that right?
They do some of that stuff. They did like the Rodriguez records, if you've ever heard of him.
Oh, he
He
had
just
that
died recently.
documentary?
There was a documentary about him made,
Yeah, Sugar
like
Man.
10, yes. So
Okay, okay.
they did all his records. They've done a lot of the Lee Hazelwood and Nancy Sinatra stuff in more recent years.
Okay. Huh.
They do a lot of the Japanese city pop. Anyway, it's sort of,
Yeah.
those are the sort of things that have always influenced me and informed how I look at this, maybe more so than like video labels.
Yeah.
That sort of came later, a little bit later,
Mm.
when I first started getting into collecting. It was something I sort of related it to. I sort of related Something
Mm.
Weird and Mondo Macabro to like Drag City or Touch and Go Records, something like that.
Right.
That sort of the way that they have a specific brand and identity and aesthetic. Um, I related those two things, and so in my work for Mondo Macabro or Neon Eagle, that is sort of the idea that I'm going for. Like exactly what
Cool.
you said. Like Touch and Go puts out a record, and you think, well, it's on Touch and Go, so I'm gonna buy it.
Right.
So that's the sort of the thing that I would sort of go for with this. It's like, oh, it's on Mondo Macabro. I'm
Hmm.
going to buy it. But
Yeah,
it's definitely,
totally.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
That's
but I think because you guys put out stuff that are so obscure, like you basically are pulling that off. Because a lot of the times, like the films you put out, like how would we even go about seeing
right.
them, right? So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a weird thing. And I'm very grateful that so many people follow us down the rabbit hole.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
yeah, because a lot of these movies are really obscure. And I think there is a big portion of the sort of physical media buying audience that just want the movies that they know from when they were kids. They just want to still
Yeah,
see the Evil Dead movies or the Lucio Fulci movies over and over again. And
but
there's
those will
nothing wrong
still
with
be
that.
there.
I buy a lot of that stuff over and over again
Yeah,
too.
I do too. I do too.
But I
But
love
yeah,
discovering stuff. And I think
yeah.
what's great is we've sort of found this core audience that is also into just discovering stuff. Um,
Hmm.
that is like, oh, I like this kind of movie, so here's a weird Asian variant of it. So that Mondo
Hmm.
Macabro is putting out. So yeah, I'm going to go for that. Or just anything because Mondo Macabro is putting it out, it must be good or
Yeah.
interesting. If not, if I don't like it, at least it's weird and interesting, and that's valuable. I think that's a great. It's great for us because it means we can sell our stuff, but it's just a valuable experience that I hope that we're providing for people.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. Um yeah, I mean you guys do have like a lot of different kind of like I don't you do have like a few I'd almost want to say like party movies, like
Oh,
something
sure. Yeah.
like Lady Terminator or Stranger
Absolutely.
versus Strange or Strangler versus Strangler and stuff.
Right.
But for the
Right.
most part it is it's definitely more sophisticated. And I think that was something that initially like drew me to the label, was just feeling like, okay, whatever I get, I know it's not just going to be something that is like a slog that I'm going to roll my eyes out and then throw at the
Right.
wall. I kind of
I would
felt,
hope not. Yeah.
yeah, no, I guess 'cause, like I got really into collecting and, I don't want to like name any labels or anything, but it got to the point where like releasing so much stuff and it gets to the point where there doesn't feel like a curation happening and you don't want to take those chances and that can kind of burn out the collector, so I almost appreciate that you guys don't put as much stuff out, like
Yeah.
you really like fine tune it.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely something we go for. And just again, just the fact that we aren't a big label and can't do a
Hmm.
bunch of stuff. I think sometimes some of the bigger labels get caught in traps of being so big that they
Yeah.
have to just find product. They have to find content,
Yeah.
to release, to keep feeding the beast, to keep feeding their
Hmm.
large audience, or to justify their huge staffs. Which is not
Oh
to disparage anybody because a lot of those labels,
yeah,
I mean, like 95% of what they do, I still think is really great.
absolutely.
But there is a certain sense you feel of maybe some of these labels. It's not as much curation as it is, well, what can we do? We
Okay.
have access to this. Let's just do it. And I know from speaking to some people in other labels that sometimes they will often just release a film maybe that they don't even really like. Um,
Oh, okay.
and again, not going to name names, and that's
Yeah.
fine as a way of doing bit. I have no problem with that, but that's not going to be the way that Mondo Macabro is going to do stuff. At least,
Nice.
at least one of us, at least either Pete or myself, are going to seriously love the movie that we're putting
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
there have been a few things that I've been not so hot on, and there have been a few things that I know Pete was like, but I was like, no, this is really cool, and I think it'll sell. So, but at least one of us is very enthusiastic about everything that we do.
Yeah. I mean, there's a part of me that wants to ask, but I feel like that might be a bad idea.
Like, what did you? I'll spill a little bit off the air.
Oh no! Off the air. Okay. Well, then I'll wait till we can stop recording. But it doesn't seem like that comes up too much. Like, if anything, just from talking to you about it, it's almost like you just haven't had a chance to see all the titles that you put out yet.
Yeah, sometimes because Pete does most of the acquisitions for Mondo Macabro, and Pete has a vast knowledge of obscure international cinema, particularly European cinema.
Mm.
And he often brings things to the table that I have never even heard of before, just like anybody else. Just, I find myself again in the same situation in a way that a lot of you do. Mm-hmm. A movie comes out that he's decided we're going to do. Sometimes I see it beforehand. Sometimes I don't see it until I have the final product in hand.
Mm.
And a good example of that from the last year is the Greek movie, The Fear.
Oh,
The
yeah.
60s movie. It was in the first bundle that we had for sale this year. Still have some of the limited editions left. I think like around 30 or 35 copies left. So as of recording, by the time this comes out, I don't know. But that is a movie that I had no idea, I had never heard of. We've done a bunch of Greek movies, and I usually do enjoy them, but this was sort of on another level. And this was again something that is sort of like that sort of somewhere where a genre film and an exploitation film and an art house film sort of meet somewhere. Very, very well made, but there's a sort of dangerous sort of sexual element to it, and but although it's a 60s film, so it's not like completely over the top. And also sort of art house vibe to it, especially it has sort of an avant-garde score.
Oh, the score is so good.
Yeah. So have you seen that one?
The Fear?
Yeah.
Yeah. I found out from someone on Letterboxd that you guys used like a quote from my review. On the retail edition.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, sick. Okay. I did really love that movie. So
that's really cool.
Well, when I found out, it was funny because I didn't believe the person because I have the red case. They're like, yeah, you've got your quote on the box. I'm like, I'm looking at the box. Like, what are you talking about? And then I think I Googled it and then found it's the retail edition.
It's the retail version. Sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that must have been Pete then.
He puts all that together, and literally he just goes online and starts looking for reviews. To pull quotes from, and so he found your Letterboxd review.
Hey, if he needs any more, I think if anything, I just want Split Your Head on there, just so people are like, what's this podcast, as opposed to like, Letterboxd, eh? Okay.
Sure. I'll try and keep that in mind if we ever find anything from you again. Yeah, no sorry about that. Yeah, sorry.
No need to apologize. I was excited to see that. I had that happen one other time with a German release of Hellgate.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, and I would have never found out if it wasn't for someone buying it in Germany and then finding my review and then saying, oh, hey, they quoted you. And then he came back a week later and was like, oh, I didn't really like the movie that much. Like maybe if I was drunk or so, he said something like that. I was like, I probably was drinking when I watched it. So.
Well, hopefully no one is saying that about The Fear. Hopefully everyone is like, oh, you've guided us correctly.
That is actually an initial thing. This sounds so bad, but one of the first things I loved about like buying Mondo films is like, wow, I don't feel like I have to have a beer to watch this or anything. Like, actually, I started getting really into just like, this is during the pandemic. So I was like working from home a lot. And I was like, oh, I can just like wake up and have a coffee and then throw on one of these movies. And it felt like I was like getting a good experience out of it. Whereas like some other labels, you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna need a beer to get through this one, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that makes me happy. Yeah. Yeah. So the fear is one that, yeah, it was completely new to me, like I said.
Mm.
And it's going to be on my like top 10 of the year for sure, of my top
Oh,
10
nice.
movies that my first time watches. I absolutely fell in love with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, it's like I'm in the same spot as a lot of people are. I just,
Yeah.
sometimes I don't see it until it's in hand.
I think for me, a top 10 will be another film you guys just put out, The Inferno, which I managed to watch earlier this year in March. And then
well, that's funny. Yeah, I remember you. I think you commented on something on my Facebook page, and you mentioned that you had watched it, and I had to be like, because I had like literally just signed it a month or so ahead of before that, and I had to like try not to spill the beans like right away.
You put a meme that was very telling. Was just like, I think it's safe to say that they're putting this out, because you have to realize, like, if you don't say no, you know what I mean?
Right.
If you're like, because I think I asked that, I was like, oh, are you guys putting this out? And you said maybe. I'm like, if you don't say no, then it's pretty much yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I guess maybe just trying to hint a little bit, but hoping not many people, and I'm sure not many people look at my Facebook page. So I mean, so nobody cares. But yeah.
I told a few people though.
Yeah, good. Hopefully, you told a bunch of people to buy it too. Which paid off because that sold out. So
nice,
sold out. So
has that been maybe the best-selling release of the year?
Yeah, for sure. It and the other Japanese movie we did at the same time, Curse of the Dog God. So up until that, we've been sort of, I won't say be having a rough year, because stuff has been selling. I mean, stuff always sells. Yeah. But we weren't selling out the limited editions. And I always find that selling out a 1,500 edition of the limiteds is just a good way to get off on a good foot for a movie.
Sure.
And so I was sort of worried that we hadn't really done that this year. But then both Inferno and Curse of the Dog God sold out.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting, and they're both great movies, and the Inferno especially, is a fantastic film.
Yeah, I'd love to see you guys put out more stuff, I guess, like that, but also stuff by that director. That's a Nakatsu film, is that right?
No, it's a film from Toei.
Toei. Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
but no, I think it's the director is like
Tatsumi Kashimura.
Yeah, he's associated with Nakatsu. Like
he mostly did Nakatsu Roman porno movies.
Right, that's where I knew him from.
And some really good ones too. We've done some Nakatsu stuff in the past. I mean, it's possible we could do some more in the future. I think they're a little bit harder to deal with. Toei right now is the easiest, which is why you're seeing so many Toei films come out on the market right now.
Yeah,
they're a very easy licensor to deal with at the moment.
Okay.
So we've now done 4 movies from them. The year before we did Haunted Turkish Bathhouse, and House of Terrors. Which did very well and continue to do well for us.
Oh, so more Toei to come then.
More and more Toei to come.
Awesome.
And Neon Eagle, which we haven't talked about yet, but Neon Eagle just did pre-order for Zero Woman Red Handcuffs, which is another Toei film.
Yeah. I grabbed that one.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that sold out too. So there's obviously a sort of hunger, a desire for these 70s Japanese films. Which is great. And we are doing more. I'll just say that we will be doing more. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like maybe a lot of people are discovering Female Prisoner Scorpion and Lady Snowblood. I know I did in the past few years, and that kind of led me down a bit more of like the Pinku rabbit hole and like Roman pornos and stuff. So that seems to be a big area that has had very little released, and I think a lot of people would be into it, but I'm sure it's maybe not the easiest stuff to put out for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, especially some of the Roman porno stuff. I mean, it does, you know, there's some content issues maybe with a few
Oh
of
yeah.
them, and title issues too. But Synapse did a bunch of those. Although a lot
Yeah.
of them were TV only. But
Okay.
there's some good
Yeah.
releases. They didn't always. I wasn't always in agreement with their curation. Um, I
Okay.
think there's a lot of really good ones that they missed, but
Yeah. I think most people would agree with you on that.
yeah, some of them I just just erotic housewife jumping straddle or whatever,
Yeah.
it just and some of those actually end up being like better than you think they're gonna be, but there's some
Yeah.
weirder, more artsy ones or more sort of out there exploitation-y or horror ones that weren't
Hmm.
done that should be done, and maybe we can do some of them someday. Like we've done some in the past, but like I said, they're just a slightly more difficult licensor to deal with, I think,
That's too
than
bad.
Toei right now, which is why we're doing so
Right.
many Toei things.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I didn't even realize like Toei did more pinky stuff, but it's more on the pinky violence kind of
Right? Yeah.
side of
So
things.
they did. I mean, they had their own kind of variations and their own lines. Pinky violence is a term that was created in retrospect.
Oh,
So
okay.
it wasn't like, whereas like Roman porno, I believe, was an actual, like, that's Nikatsu.
Yeah.
That was like they called those. Toei didn't have an official name for any of those films, but in retrospect, there's very much something that links all those movies from that time period. Neon Eagle
Yeah.
will be doing, yeah, Neon Eagle will be doing some more of those too.
Oh,
Some of the
cool.
Pinky
Okay. Yeah, because you have something dropping in November, right?
Maybe. It won't be a Pinky
Oh, okay.
Violence film. It won't be a Pinky Violence film.
Okay.
We have a bit Neon Eagle. If we want to talk a little bit about Neon Eagle,
Yeah,
it's
if you're cool
we
to do that.
can. So Neon Eagle is my other side label thing. It's a side hustle
Hmm.
that I do with Cauldron Films, the guys who run
Right.
Cauldron, and we're doing it's specifically Asian films, and specifically it's more action oriented, I think, than a lot of Mondo stuff,
Yeah.
which is more horror oriented. Although there will be a little bit of horror in Neon Eagle too. But
Hmm.
we have one more big release that we hope is coming out this year, but it's getting to be a really huge project, so we're pushing it back a little bit.
Okay.
So that's, but it will be a fun, interesting movie that a lot of people will be excited about because it's the least obscure film that Neon Eagle has signed so far. It's something that a
Okay.
lot of people are sort of aware of. Sometimes even
Yeah.
people who only sort of dip their toes in this sort of thing have probably heard of this movie. So it's a fun
Yeah.
trash movie.
A fun what movie?
A fun trash movie, or like
Oh,
you mentioned
trash.
you mentioned earlier, party movies.
Yeah.
This would be like a party movie for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Huh. And it's Toei, right?
No. No.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, sorry. I thought you said that. Okay. So
No.
can you say what country it's from?
Hong Kong.
Oh, is it a Cat 3?
No. It predates the Cat
Oh,
3 system. Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it
It's from the
Shaw?
mid '80s. Cat 3, the Cat 3 rating category, or that
Right.
category rating system didn't come into existence until the late '80s. And I think
Okay.
even if you put a rating, it would be Cat 2. It's not.
Oh, okay.
Not
Interesting.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry, did you say it was a Shaw Brothers film?
No, not a Shaw
No.
Brothers film. No. It's
Okay.
another licensor. I don't want to say just because it will reveal too much, and I want to keep,
Okay.
again, sort of with that Spanish horror film. I sort of want to keep my cards a little bit to my chest with it.
Okay. It's just fun to like poke you about it and
Oh
see.
no, I know, and
Yeah.
it is fun. I would love
Yeah.
to do some Shaw stuff.
Sure.
There's so many Shaw movies that
Yeah.
are out
Yeah.
there, and a lot of really good ones that have not made it to Blue yet.
Yeah.
So I would love to. But the only thing with Shaw Brothers is that they require you to license like 30 movies at a time. They really are only wanting to make
Oh.
huge deals, which is why you have things
Yeah.
like Shout Factory doing these
Right.
huge box sets. like 10 of these huge box sets, and Arrow doing huge box sets. It's because you have to make you have to license like 30 movies at a time. Basically.
Yeah, I just feel like I couldn't stop counting how many people were disappointed you couldn't get Boxer's Omen on its own.
I was disappointed too.
Yeah, I was like, that's the only one I really want.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that whole box set. I mean, I'm gonna buy every one of those Arrow box sets. They do a really good job with those. But Boxer's Omen was the highlight of that one, and it is one of my favorite films. Period. Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, I would say that's probably top 10 movie for me for sure.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's a great film. I totally respect that. Yeah.
I think it's like the craziest movie like ever. It's just nonstop. There's not a dull second in that movie. Something always weird and crazy happening.
Maybe a controversial opinion here, but I think it does loop back. I think I might prefer and think is crazier Dr. Caligari.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Caligari, I mean, it's such a weird... I mean, it's a very different kind of weird, you know what I mean, than Boxer's Omen, for sure.
But you could see them like on a double bill, you know what I mean?
I think that could work. Yeah. They're both very colorful, have almost a psychedelic quality to them.
Yeah, there's like body horror-ishness going on.
Yeah.
Dr. Caligari is definitely more like, it's very American. By comparison.
Yeah.
So,
very rooted in a specific kind of American underground aesthetic. Which is really fun and fun for us to explore that. Again, not something we haven't done a ton of American films, and so that's really been worthwhile to try and
what were the other American titles you guys did?
Well, we did a co-release with Something Weird that we put out through a sub-label that I called American Arcana. That there were some other releases planned, and everything sort of fell through. So we haven't gone back to that line.
The
Ravager?
Okay.
Yeah, and the Bushwhacker was the other film. It was a double feature. So we did those. I think back in the DVD days, we did before I was part of Mondo Macabro.
Yeah.
Pete and Andy did Clonus, the Parts Horror, or Parts, the Clonus Horror. You know, Clonus. You know that movie?
I don't know that one.
It was more famous for being a Mystery Science Theater episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is fun. No, I mean, I've always loved Mystery Science Theater.
Okay.
But the movie is, when you see it cleaned up and uncut and everything, it's actually a really weird and fun and interesting and well done movie. It sort of didn't deserve to be sort of counted as a so bad it's good kind of movie.
I feel the same way about Mac and Me.
no, come on.
I'm just kidding, but I do love Mac and Me. It's for something a little different from that.
Honestly, I had never seen that other than seeing clips. I had never seen it until the Mystery Science Theater episode.
Oh, really?
I had never watched it. Yeah.
Maybe that's why I never really got too into Mystery Science Theater 3000. Is that a lot of times I'd watch these movies and just laugh with my friends, and I wouldn't really need the extra jokes. I'd just be like, guys, we're good. We don't need that.
Right. Yeah. And it's fun. You watch movies. And I've gone back, and I was really into that show as a teenager. And I remember when it was like basically new because I'm that old. But and I've always loved it and would watch the movies and go, oh, that movie's terrible. But then you go and watch something like Clonus, or even something like Manos: The Hands of Fate, which is always talked about as like the worst of the worst.
It's pretty boring.
But if you watch it on its own, it has this special magic, like hypnotic quality to it that is really interesting. It has this doomy atmosphere to it that is, I think, very appealing. I mean, it's a bad movie in the sense that it's very technically shambolic. It's very, haphazardly made. But a lot of those times there's a special magic, a special power that comes in movies like that. And I think Manos is one of them. So it's kind of fun to watch movies outside of the context of the Mystery Science Theater thing. And sometimes, they're just funny, but sometimes there's like no, this is actually kind of good. This is actually kind of weird and fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'll give it another chance. I just remember a friend showing it to me, and the problem was that I think like he loved it similar to you, but he really overhyped it, and we were watching a lot of stuff at the time, like Troll 2. You know what I mean? And so when
Oh,
someone
right.
throws on Manos around that period, and you're just like, I don't know, this
Right,
doesn't
because it
have that
doesn't have,
sauce.
it's not like super quotable like Troll 2 or,
Yeah,
it's not, and it's a very sort of slow,
it's very
it's,
very stiff.
it's stiff. It's very, you
Yeah,
know, and not, there's not great cinematography or anything like that.
no.
But again, I think if you're in the right frame of mind, it has a very sort of weird, disquieting aura about it that I find sort of fascinating and worthwhile.
Okay. So next year, Mondo's going to put it out, or?
No, there's a great edition from Synapse. Everyone should just go buy that.
Oh, Synapse put that one out. Okay.
Yes.
I just assumed it was like public domain or something.
Well, I think it actually is, but then there was a guy who acquired the negatives.
Oh, okay.
This was like 10 or more years ago.
Yeah.
And did a Kickstarter campaign to get it restored, which I contributed to. And then it took like 5-6 years, but finally a Blu-ray came out, and it came out through Synapse. It was funded by this one guy, but the eventual commercial release came through Synapse.
Okay. Huh. Good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like we should bring it back to Mondo for the sale.
Sure.
Yeah, no, because we should go through. Like, I feel like you always do a good job of mentioning kind of your favorites that haven't really gotten a lot of attention. So
yeah.
And I brought all mine out as well. So
okay.
Yeah, no, just kind of like my favorites.
I should have grabbed some stuff too to show people.
I'll be putting up the images like right in the middle of the screen, so it's not a big deal. Yeah, yeah. But
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Let's go one for one.
Okay, all right. Well,
you start
go first. I'm curious to see which one you will pick.
I mean, I already mentioned it, but Dr. Caligari, is the UHD still available?
The they're just we just released actually I don't think it's quite out yet, but it will be soon, a retail UHD release. The retail blue release is out now, but you will be able to buy the retail UHD release during the sale. I'm sure I'll have it up, even if it's just a pre-order. But it will be up for sure. Yeah.
And it will be discounted, right?
That one, because it's so brand new, if it's discounted at all, it won't be discounted very much. So some more of the stuff that's just coming out as retail editions probably won't have, maybe a couple bucks knocked off.
Okay.
Unless it's something that is sort of not sold super well or whatever.
Okay.
But at least it will be available. You can buy it from us.
Yeah. Well, it's my favorite thing that you guys have put out, so I think it's worth the money, and I think everyone should get it. It is super fucked up and awesome.
Yeah. And for fans of that, I announced on a different podcast that we're doing Cafe Flesh.
Right. I haven't seen that.
I have not seen it either yet, honestly. So, although I think it's sort of considered the Steven Sadian movie, even more so than Caligari.
But it's would you say it's more of a porn? Is that fair to say?
It is, although we don't we're going to be sort of cagey about that and any of the sort of social media aspects of it, just because we can get kicked off of PayPal for selling it.
Oh, true. Yeah. Forgot about that.
So, which would devastate our business entirely.
Yeah.
So we're going to be cagey. We're not going to mention that and basically any of the social media stuff. But yeah, it is. It's
okay.
There's hardcore content.
Oh, it's hardcore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Steven Sadian made movies. He brought his own specific aesthetic that, if you've seen Caligari, you'll be familiar with. And it's a sort of similar thing throughout all his movies. But he primarily, I think, made hardcore pornographic films.
But he also did commercials too, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he did commercials, and I think he had a background in graphic design, I think,
Okay.
and then went into making commercials and had a specific aesthetic that he sort of, and he went into making sort of underground films, but I think was able to make the kind of films that he wanted to on the scale that he wanted to by basically making them in the sex film industry. So,
Okay.
so that's how that sort of worked out.
Interesting.
And then he reached a point where he could do Caligari without, having to include.
Yeah, that's like my right amount personally.
Sure,
I'm good with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, from what I understand, it's not like a thing where it's just like the whole film stops for two people to fuck.
Right, right, yeah.
He does everything in an artistic way.
Okay.
And in a very Steven Sadian kind of way.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you go.
So I'll go. So
Yeah.
I'll mention three overall over the course of this. And I'll mention just because I am really into one of the things everyone knows I'm sort of into Asian stuff, but another area that I'm really interested in and that I wish we could do more of is Eastern European films.
Okay.
And so sort of always the releases that we've done, like 3 releases that are Eastern European films or Eastern European related films.
Mm-hmm.
And they never sort of get quite as much attention as I feel that they should get. So the first one I'll mention is Miklos Jansko's Private Vices, Public Virtues.
Okay, I don't know that one.
Okay, yeah, it's from the 70s. He was a Hungarian director.
Mm-hmm.
And like a lot of Eastern European directors, at some point he, had to, was stifled by the communist system and had to go to the West to continue to try and make the movies that he wanted to make. And of course, you go and you find there are different strictures that are commercial based rather than government based.
Okay.
But he was able to make some interesting films in the West, and this is one of them. It was an Italian co-production. So it's a Hungarian director with Italian money and an Italian crew working in Yugoslavia.
Okay.
And it's sort of a period film. It's an erotic film. It's a wild art house film. It's got exploitation aspects to it. If you've ever seen any Miklos Jansko movies, you will see certain of his aesthetic aspects on display, but done in a more commercial aspect. And it's very intriguing, I think, to see him work out his sort of thematic concerns in a exploitation context. It's very different.
Okay.
So that is one that I really love, and has never really just gotten the accolades it deserves. And quite honestly,
you guys haven't sold as many. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it sort of is sort of the thing that it comes down to is
totally,
what things are selling and what things aren't selling, and it has not sold as much as we would like.
Okay.
So this is a good chance. This may not be the kind of movie that a lot of people. It's not a horror movie, for one thing. There's not really.
That's
I
okay.
mean, it's more of a kind of a bizarre erotic art house movie.
Is there
a bit of a harder sell, but so the sale is a good chance to catch up with something like that. I think it'll be pretty cheap.
Is there a film or director you could compare it to that maybe I might know of? Or
well, yeah, actually, I mean, we talked about him earlier, Valerian Brovchik.
Okay, gotcha.
There is a sort of. It's a different because Jansko had his own sort of aesthetic. He had his own sort of very specific thing.
Okay.
That's different than Brovchik's entirely. But when you get them both working in Western period set erotic films, there becomes this sort of correspondence between the two, just because they have different aesthetics, but they're coming from a similar system, and then working and then working later in a different similar system, and it creates this sort of commonality that I think if you enjoy something like Immoral Tales or Story of Sin or The Beast, especially The Beast, you will find something. You will find something to enjoy with this one.
Okay, cool. That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so
what do you got next?
this was so before getting Dr. Caligari, this was my favorite release that you guys put out, The Laughing Woman. Yeah,
Good
this. Yeah, I was really surprised by this one. I think I kind of got to a point where I felt like a lot of like '60s giallo stuff. I was kind of like drying up the well a bit, like, oh, okay, I've seen all the good ones, and then that one just really hit the spot. I think also too, it does a good job of being like really psychologically transgressive, but it kind of like reaches the line, but it's still also shocking for its time. And so when I reviewed it, I compared it to The Blind Beast, which I feel is kind of like a pretty similar film. Maybe Blind Beast goes a little crazier in the end, but yeah, the Laughing Woman, I highly recommend people check that out this sale.
Yeah, a great film, and the comparison to Blind Beast is spot on. Both made in the same year too. It's sort of something that was just sort of in the air at the time, I guess. Yeah. And very the art design, the sort of production design on that film is just fantastic. And again, something that it corresponds a bit to Blind Beast. Yeah, there's sort of a similar thing even going on with that. Really, really terrific movie. Great, and great Silvio Cipriani score. For people who love Italian soundtrack music, and who doesn't, you're crazy. If
totally.
That's a fantastic score that works really well on its own. Just I've got a record of it that I'll put on every once in a while.
Oh, nice.
Who
put that out?
I don't know. I bought it. I mentioned Light in the Attic earlier. They do a lot of distribution, and I bought it through them, although they didn't put it out. So I don't know. I'm not sure who put it out.
Okay.
It's out there, or it was at one time. Maybe it's out of print.
Yeah. And so because this one came out last year, right? Or the year before? I'm trying to remember. But it will be discounted, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay,
yeah, for sure. It'll be I can't say for certain, but it'll probably be like $15 or so.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sort of continuing with my theme, the next one I'll talk about is the Latvian film from the early 90s, Spider.
That's a good one.
I
didn't grab it, but yeah, I like
that
one.
Yeah. That's again a sort of more, it has more of a horror aspect to it. But it is sort of this sort of art house exploitation mix from an Eastern European viewpoint. And just very weird and very different sort of take on this. It was made in Latvia, which is a Baltic country when it was still part of the USSR. Just before it became an independent. Those Baltic states were some of the first to declare their independence when the Soviet system started to fall apart. But so it was made just on the cusp of its independence. Cool. And that's a really interesting period in general for films from the Soviet Union, is the Perestroika era, when censorship was really starting to loosen up. And you've got a lot of really weird horror films that were made in that period in Russia, and then again, sort of outside of Russia in some of the republics. And I think Spider is one of the best ones. And it's just a very interesting, unique aesthetic and lots of very creepy, weird visuals to it. And, if you've ever wanted to see a very pretty woman having sex with a giant spider, this is the movie for you. This is the movie you've always been waiting for. So there you
That's
go.
That's a good selling point. Yeah.
Beautiful Eastern European woman having sex with a giant spider.
Yeah. I remember the cinematography being pretty good too, and a very
beautiful,
Fulci zooms kind of way, Yeah.
I like
that one quite a bit.
Very just European aspect to it. Not even just Eastern European, but just a sort of European. It should be more of a Euro cult standard, I think, at this point. But again, one that's sort of, because it was hugely obscure when we put it out, and has, we've raised the awareness of it a little, but it's still one that's never really gotten the due it's deserved.
So that will be like heavily discounted, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I already talked about this. What are we on, number 3? but the Apocalypse After set,
Right,
I think, is
right.
just really good value too, because you hit so many short films on here. I don't think I've even finished all of them. I think I've only watched about 80% of what's on here. But I also have his other two features. But this is the Bertrand Mandico set.
Yeah.
And I mean, this might even be the best way to start with his stuff, because I think in short film form, it's a little bit easier to kind of absorb his like really singular and bizarre aesthetic and everything. And a lot of his stuff does almost feel like really wild music videos, but he has this kind of like mixture of like puppetry and like sexuality that is just so. I've been trying to like coin this term and run with it for a while, but whimsical sleaze.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
like I feel
That's
like
a good description.
he would be kind of under that banner. Although it does get sinister at times, but I do feel like yeah, it's very whimsical, you know.
Yeah, yeah. His stuff is very unique. He's a unique voice in contemporary cinema. No one else is really doing anything like what he is doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So very, very valuable. I can tell that will be on sale for sure. It's been cheaper than we initially sold it for a long time, actually, because that is it's been a very, very slow seller for us. I will discount it even further.
Oh wow.
Gosh, I don't know. There's probably 300 or 400 left.
How many was the run?
It was 1,500.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I mean, we just sold out 1,500 copies of those two Japanese movies in like 2 weeks. So compare that to that. But there was sort of a competing release from Alternate Innocence around the same time. So we sort of split the sales on that one. But the nice thing is that it's still around for people who want to pick it up.
Yeah, for sure.
It's got an interesting booklet that comes with it that has art from Mandico in it. So yeah, so still available. It'll be available all throughout the sale. It'll be discounted. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I hope people check that out.
Yeah. The last one that I'll mention right now is you mentioned it briefly earlier, Strangler versus Strangler.
Right, yeah.
Which is, you have it there? Ah, yes.
Yeah, I do,
yeah. It's a really fun movie. It was one that caught me off guard. Again, like Spider, it was one that I hadn't seen before we put it out. Unlike Private Vices, I'd seen that one before.
Yeah.
But so it was completely new to me, and honestly, like, I was a bit worried. I was like, oh, it's a comedy. I mean,
totally.
We don't really do many comedies, but it's very weird. It fits very well within our aesthetic. It has this great sort of like 80s punk feel to it. This 80s punk aesthetic, new wave aesthetic,
Yeah.
Except it's Serbian. It's a movie from a Serbian language movie from when Serbia was still part of Yugoslavia.
Right.
So, and I think the comedy actually works. The comedy it's actually very funny.
Sure. Yeah.
And very weird. And the music is great. Although, like, if you don't like the one song, it gets played over and over again. You're gonna have a rough time. It gets played a lot. But I think the song is great. I really like it a lot. And I think it's just an interesting, weird movie. Again, sort of one of the things we want to do is sort of expose certain cinematic cultures that don't always get the exposure that they should, and sort of I think there are some Yugoslavian films that are sort of part of the sort of world cinema canon, but not many, and certainly not many from like the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's valuable to see, like, what Sarajevo? Is it Sarajevo? Shit, I can't remember the city that it's set in, or Sarajevo, part of Bosnia. No, I can't remember. But
Belgrade.
It's Belgrade. Of course, Belgrade. Sorry, yeah, Belgrade. It's just very interesting to see, like, what Belgrade in the 1980s was like. There's lots of street scenes and everything, and what Serbian kids were doing in clubs at the time and how they dressed and everything. And it's valuable in that aspect, and it's just fun. It's just a fun, very odd little movie.
Right.
But it
Yeah.
will be definitely discounted during the sale. It'll be $15 or less for sure.
What I love about that movie, I mean, well, one of the many things I love about it. So I'm a big fan of. There's a couple films that Vinegar Syndrome put out, Wacko and Pandemonium.
No,
Are
sure,
you
sure.
familiar with those?
Yes.
Okay, so
The sort
those
of
are
slasher spoofs. Yeah.
right slasher spoofs, and to me, I kind of sold Strangler versus Strangler to a few friends as this is sort of Mondo Macabro's Wacko. But by saying that, I wasn't trying to degrade Mondo Macabro or Strangler versus Strangler, but to basically explain how what you guys put out is sort of a very sophisticated and more elevated, uh, but like world cinema take on that type of film. Do you know what I mean? Like that's
Sure, sure.
exactly
Yeah.
like this is what Mondo Macabro would put out in that sort of vein. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's I kind of don't appreciate like Wacko or Pandemonium very much personally.
Okay.
But and that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
That's it. They don't really work for me, but I could definitely can see where you're coming from
Okay.
with that because it does have a similar sort of aim, but
Yeah.
it's definitely, and I hate to say it because it's such a loaded word. It's elevated.
Yeah.
It's there's a point of view that the movie is coming from that's sharper, that's smarter than the point of view
Oh, totally.
that Wacko and Pandemonium are coming from. And I'm sure the people who made those movies are actually really intelligent, smart people, but they're making them within a specific commercial context, which
Sure.
is the sort of the post Porky's spoof, or the post Airplane
Yeah.
spoof era.
Yeah.
And I like those movies, but the Wacko. Actually, I don't even think I've seen Pandemonium, but Wacko,
It's worse than Wacko.
I hated it. I hated it. I think it's a terrible movie. But,
Oh, it's it's a failed film, but it's so bizarre. I laugh from beginning to end.
it is
Maybe
bizarre. Yeah.
at it, but I don't know. I don't know
Which
where
is
to.
fine. And and it might just be, I don't know if you find this, but I find that there's like, I can sit and watch a movie and hate it and go back to it 2 years later and be like, no, this is actually pretty good. This is pretty interesting, just because your point of view sort of shifts over time. I find that all the time, or the reverse too. I can like a movie and then watch it a couple of years later and go, what was I thinking?
I definitely know what you mean, but I'm finding as I get older I'm starting to lose that, to be
No,
honest.
really?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm 38. I had to remember. So I'm 38. So like I'm finding as I approach 40 that I'm starting to get a little bit more set in what I like. And I've been trying things again in the past, like something I've seen a year or two ago. Like I'll try it again and I'll be like, no, I was right. But stuff I'd seen maybe 5-10 years ago, maybe I'm wrong. But you know what I mean? Like I'm starting to get that more solidified. So
Sure.
yeah.
Well, I'm starting to push 50.
Okay.
And I find that maybe I'm getting more open-minded as I go along.
No,
so.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear,
Yeah, so it's weird the way it works. And I find it's just my very sort of mindset and mood very much affects what I think of a movie.
Oh,
and there are some
100%.
films that like, it's straight ahead. It's always going to be something I love every time I watch it, no matter what. But there are a lot of movies that sort of feel differently at different times in my life, or different days in my life.
Yeah, for sure.
Wacko could be one of those. I don't know. It might happen.
Are you like a Good Burger fan at all, or is that something?
I've never seen Good Burger.
Okay, I mean, to me, they would go ahead. Oh, okay. What about like I mean, these are much better films, but like Raising Arizona or Polyester.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Raising Arizona was a favorite of my whole family's from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like it's just very much like a summer comedy. And I mean, Good Burger is in that vein as well. Wacko would be kind of like the demented, like, okay, it's 1 a.m. and we're still watching movies, kind of like, and now Wacko. I mean, just when you get to the end and the elephant's talking, I'm just like, what is going on? But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I understand. Wacko, we'll never see it on Mondo Macabro in the future.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
I think the Vinegar Syndrome release is great. Everyone should go buy it from them.
Yeah.
We won't be doing the special edition UHD version of it.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't keep you because we've been talking for an hour and 35 minutes now. I do have a quick questionnaire to throw at you.
Sure. Okay.
But is there anything else you want to touch on about the sale?
No, just October 20th is when the flash pre-order will happen.
Okay.
So there'll be 750 of those bundles. Actually, a little bit less. It'll be more like 730 or 725.
Okay.
Just because we'll need to hold back some of those Death Squad UHDs for people that if some are go missing in the mail or get damaged,
Right.
and then we also have to have some for contributors and things like that. So it'll be like 725 or so copies of that bundle. That'll go on sale. Once that sells out, that flash pre-order will be over. If it doesn't sell out, it'll just be 24 hours. And then the remaining copies will get sold when the sale starts again on the 31st. So the proper Halloween sale will start on, it's Tuesday, the 31st of October, on Halloween itself. All our catalog will be discounted. Shipping fees will be discounted. There will be a bundle, but it'll just be the Death Squad Blu-ray that's in that bundle, not the UHD edition. And there'll be plenty of copies of everything else. We're doing large print runs on the other stuff. So,
awesome.
Plenty of copies. Everyone will be able to see all of these movies. The movies themselves aren't going to be limited at all. They'll be and then there'll be standard editions once the limited editions sell out. So no one has to worry about that. So that's this. The 20th is the flash pre-order, and then the 31st is the sale itself. And the sale itself will last about a week. I think it'll last until I think I'll probably shut it down early in the morning on the 7th the next week.
Awesome. Okay, looking forward to it. All right, so the quick questionnaire. Oh, it's exciting.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Okay. All right. So it's just a few questions.
Yeah.
Rapid fire. Take your time, whatever you want. So tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Okay.
Duh.
So here's one that might take a little while. Usually people get stalled on it. Choose one film for the rest of your life.
Oh my God. Oh, there's so many. I don't even know. My first inclination, and maybe I'll just go with the first thing that pops in my head, is Seven Samurai.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I know. Kurosawa's a huge blind spot for me. I've only seen Akiru and Dreams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
wow.
I need to do that.
Never even seen any of the famous samurai movies.
No, never.
Wow,
I got to see it, yeah.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. I almost envy you because I love it. I love it when there's stuff that I haven't seen. In fact, I hadn't seen all the Kurosawa movies myself. I mean, I'd watched a lot of the samurai movies when I was a teenager, but hadn't seen any of his crime movies until a few years ago. I saw High and Low and The Bad Sleep Well.
Okay.
And those are incredible. High and Low is incredible. It's a masterpiece. Okay. But Seven Samurai, it's almost like it's such a cliche pick for one of the best movies of all time.
No, not
but
at all.
Man, it really is. It's just it hits on every cylinder for me. It's just a huge entertainment and it's a huge work of art at the same time. And for me, that's what I want. I love works of art, but I want to be entertained more than anything.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. If you had to be an animal, which would you choose?
Oh, an animal? Oh, God, a cat, so I can sleep all day.
That's a popular pick, actually.
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah. Okay, what happens when we die?
Oh, well, I don't know if your podcast is really the right place for me to go into all this. I can tell you it's something I think about a lot. I think about it all the time.
Oh,
okay. I'm seriously interested in metaphysical questions and notions of spiritual matters, and I go back and forth all the time. I don't know. That's the ultimate question, and that should be the ultimate question that everyone answers with. is you don't fucking know, you know?
Right.
Nobody
Yeah.
knows. Until it happens, you don't know.
Yeah.
I more think there is something than there isn't on a daily basis. I sort of go against the grain of our culture a little bit with that because our culture is very materialist based right now.
Okay.
But I don't know for sure, and I could see it very easily being the other way around. But the lights go on.
Yeah. I mean, I've always looked at it as like, if you believe there's an afterlife or anything else, you're not really wrong because you have no way of perceiving anything beyond the final moment.
Sure.
So it doesn't really matter. So in a way, it's like the last image you have is going on forever because there's actually nothing to follow it.
Sure. Yeah. And getting, I mean, absolutely. And getting in the weeds and the stuff like this, I've often thought that, people who do have like near death experiences or whatever and come back from this, it is just like weird embers firing in your brain that continue to fire in your brain after your heart stops and everything. So, essentially just sort of your brain is doing its last little bit of dreaming. And maybe that is what the afterlife is. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I also know that it is a universal concept throughout all of humanity until you get to white European culture that there is something afterwards. And I'm not going to be so self-righteous about white European cultural norms that I'm going to say that those cultures are wrong. Okay. I'm not going to do that. So I say there's a possibility that there is, just because it's absolutely no culture on earth until white Europeans decided there wasn't, thought that, there was,
I like that take. That's interesting. That's a very profound one. I've heard a lot of different ones. So I feel like there's more hope to that without being like tied to a religion.
Exactly. And I like probably most people who come on and you'll ask this question, I think a lot of religion is bullshit. But I don't think that having a spiritual basis in your life is bullshit. And I don't think that just because religion might be wrong doesn't mean there's not a God. Doesn't mean there's not multiple gods.
Yeah.
Because fuck if I know.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Nobody knows. So
nobody knows. Nobody knows. Yeah.
So this is the last question, and I'm curious to see what you'd pick for this. Song title that best describes your life.
Oh my God. I have no fucking clue. You're going to have to I'm going to be just sitting here with this and you're going to have to cut John.
Oh no, that's honestly totally fine. I had a friend on a month ago. He's plays in this band Tomb Mold. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're like a death metal band. Oh
yeah. I know. They're on the cover of Decibel magazine this month.
Yeah. So my friend Payson is the tall ginger guy on the right.
Oh, okay. I don't know the band at all. I love metal.
Same. Yeah.
I'm a big metal guy. I don't listen to a lot of contemporary metal much anymore. I was 10 or 15 years ago. I was really into the scene. I don't know if that's the right word to call it, but but I've kind of lost touch with a lot of things. So I don't know Tomb Mold other than I follow Decibel magazine on social media, and I've seen that they're,
right.
And I saw something it was there was controversy because they're just wearing t-shirts and shorts or something.
Yeah, totally.
And everyone's like, no, that's not metal, dude.
Yeah.
I grew up in the 80s and that's very metal.
Yeah, totally.
Like Anthrax wearing, knee-length shorts and t-shirts. That was what everybody was doing in the 80s.
That was so silly, yeah. But Payson also does bootleg long sleeve shirts for horror movies and he's done Sorcerer and he's done he did a Columbo hat and stuff. He does really interesting merch. So I just had him on to talk about movies for 2 hours, and
neat.
about Tomb Mold and stuff. So yeah, but I mean, if you like death metal, you should check them out. Did you ever get into death metal?
Not my favorite. I'm more of a black metal guy.
Oh, interesting.
To be honest. Yeah. And just sort of like I mentioned the 80s, that's I remember the 80s. And so I love a lot of 80s metal. I love, the original 3 Metallica records and the early Slayer records and
Oh, okay, cool.
Voivod and Celtic Frost and all that stuff.
Yeah. So you never got into like Cannibal Corpse or anything?
Not really. Yeah, that sort of like as those death metal bands were coming in, I sort of drifted away and got really into the sort of like indie rock scene, for lack of a better word. I always hate that term because people have really weird images when it comes to their mind. But it wasn't. I mean, indie rock to me is like the Jesus Lizard.
Yeah.
Or like something like Codeine or a lot of the stuff that Drag City was doing, like Will Oldham and Bill Callahan. And
right.
Stuff like that. Weird singer-songwriter stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But none of this is helping me pick a song.
Well, we are talking about music, so I don't know.
Yeah, so I think maybe we'll just sort of leave it at that. Yeah, like, just
what's your favorite band? What's your favorite album?
My favorite. I mentioned Will Oldham just a second ago. That's an artist who I've sort of. I don't know if you know. It was Palace Brothers, like in the '90s. And then Bonnie Prince Billy is the name he's recorded under.
Right, yeah.
It's sort of like a neo folk or country sort of thing.
Oh, I've heard him, yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
so sort of a skewed personality and behind it. So he's always been one of my very favorites. As far as a favorite album, gosh, it's so hard, and it's another weird thing is because I actually, as I get older, I listen to music less and less.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's just I turned into my dad. I don't listen, like I go around and I listen to podcasts and audiobooks now.
Oh, okay.
But I'm listening to audiobooks. I'm listening to like history audiobooks now.
Yeah.
Like World War II and the Soviet Union and stuff like that. So.
Oh wow.
Favorite album, I don't know. I'm gonna pick a really weird out of left field thing. I don't know if it's my ultimate favorite, but it's an album I can put on anytime and it makes me feel good.
Okay.
Night Flight to Venus by Boney M.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm talking?
Is that like Rah Rah Rasputin?
Absolutely, and that is the album that song Rasputin is on.
Okay.
And I swear to God, it's like I can put that, specifically that song, anytime. I can listen to it like 20 times a day, and every time I'll be like,
oh, okay. Yeah. What's the first song on that album? What's it called?
The first song on that album, I think, is Night Flight to Venus. It's like a sort of introduction thing.
Yeah.
It has the same drum beat rhythm that Rasputin has, or Rasputin, they pronounce it in the song. And so it goes straight from that into the Rasputin song.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And what's that?
Oh no, I was gonna say, would you want to make that your song title that best describes your life is Night Train? Was it Night Train to Venus? Was it
Night Flight to Venus? Because the concept is it's like you're in the future and you're on the first commercial flight to Venus.
Yeah.
It's like the idea behind the song. It's really goofy.
Okay.
It sounds fun.
It sounds fun.
It's like weird Euro disco. The whole
I've heard that before.
Yeah.
In reference to Bonnie Prince Billy, when I first heard him, it was from a video that someone filmed of him performing at a record store in Toronto where I live. Called Rotate This, and he played a really interesting version of I See a Darkness. Is that what it's called? And I See a Darkness. Do you know what I'm talking about? That song? Yeah. If it's still on YouTube, definitely look it up, because like I looked up the original recording afterwards, and it's like a slightly different arrangement. It's such a beautiful performance.
Yeah, that's one of the interesting things about him is he's someone who is constantly revisiting and rethinking his material.
Oh, okay.
Like when he makes a record, it's just like how that material is interpreted at that moment by himself and the musicians that he's working with. And so every time he comes back to that particular song. It's a different point in his life, and he's playing it with different people, different musicians, and so it'll be arranged differently. It'll have a different feel. Sometimes it'll be slower, sometimes it'll be like fast, almost punky. It just depends on the context with which he's working at the time. And it's one of the things that I've always found very interesting about his work, and why it is fun to sort of go through live recordings or live videos of his stuff, because it'll be a different version of his of a song that you may be very familiar with. And I See a Darkness is a really, really great song, and that's the name of one of his famous records too.
Okay. Yeah.
From way back in, I think, 99. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Johnny Cash also covered that song.
So. Really? Yeah. So I'm like one of the only people out there that just like, I have nothing against Johnny Cash, but I'm not like, I'm not like, I kind of feel like Hurt was better by Nine Inch Nails personally.
Nine Inch Nails I loved Nine Inch Nails when I was a kid, a teenager.
Yeah.
They're a band that I haven't been able to sort of get back into as an adult.
I know what you mean.
It's just, I mean, some of that industrial stuff, I was really into it in my teens, and some of it works for me now and some of it doesn't.
Yeah.
But I love his version of Hurt. And I think that is the best music video of all time. The music video for that. I haven't seen it in years and years, but I remember it just made me cry, because I am a Johnny Cash fan. I think he's a really interesting person.
Yeah.
As well as a musical artist. So, yeah.
And that was the video was I think Mark Romanek directed that.
Maybe, I'm not really sure. Yeah. I couldn't say. That sounds kind of right though. Yeah.
They had those director's series sets that came out years ago, and there was like Spike Jonze, Michel Gondry, and then they did one with Mark Romanek. And that might have been in there. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that I recommend grabbing those if they're still available.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Just like collections of music videos and stuff. So, yeah.
But then, I haven't watched a music video in like 10 years at least. So maybe there's much better music videos out there since that. I'm old. So
not that old.
My basis for all of this stuff is things I encountered like 20 years ago. So.
Well, maybe it's time. Maybe you're due for like a music renaissance. Check out the new Tomb Mold album, and
that's certainly. I mean, it's the same thing with movies. Is sometimes I think a lot of people are like this. We can sort of get stuck in just wanting to either revisit older things that we knew, or things that we are unfamiliar with, but are from the past. Like the 60s, 70s, or whatever.
Right.
So I listen, if I do listen to a lot of music, like probably the last things that I've listened to were stuff like Curtis Mayfield and Willie Hutch, like 70s funk and soul artists. So there's always I always feel like, I'm attracted to stuff, but there is always great new music being made. There's great new movies being made all the time,
Yeah.
Art continues going no matter what. And, so I'm, at some point there, I'll get back into hearing great new music. Lingua Ignota. Do you know that artist? The sort of weird religious noise artist.
Yeah, I think I've heard of. It's just a woman, right?
Yeah. Okay. And I think she's stopped using that name too, Lingua Ignota. She just uses Kirsten Hayter.
Okay. Yeah, I know of, but I don't think I've actually checked out her stuff. So
she's like probably the contemporary artist that I've sort of been fascinated by the most, I think, in the last few years.
Okay.
But again, it's just as I get older, I don't listen to as much music, although I still buy a ton of records and then listen to them once and then go, man, that was great, and then I don't listen to them again for a while.
Yeah. Well, I will say I kind of stopped collecting music physically. Like I just buy. I honestly, I'm at a point now where I just buy MP3s and T-shirts. That's it. I'm like, I go see a band live. I buy their shirt. I'll buy their album. off iTunes to have like a good
Right,
quality
right,
of it to
right.
listen to. But I just like living in apartments. Putting up record players is kind of a pain in the ass. And
I know. And
yeah,
God, I mean, I've got a ton of records, and I've been buying and collecting records since like the 90s.
nice.
And and actually, I sold a bunch of them off years ago, but I started
Mm,
buying again about 10 years ago. And like, it
mm.
is the worst thing to try and move with.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh, it is the worst. It is so awful. They're so heavy. You get a
yeah.
box. There's nothing heavier. It's like,
No,
it's like the density of a black hole. It just, you could
right.
drop it and it would just sink right through reality. It's so
Yeah,
heavy.
yeah,
It just completely obliterates gravity. Yeah.
yeah. So I guess you won't be moving anytime soon.
Well, I just moved 2 years ago. We bought
Oh,
the
okay.
house that we're living in like
Oh,
two
okay.
years
You got
ago,
a
two and a
house,
half
so
years ago,
yeah,
and it was terrible. It was so
yeah.
awful. Uh,
But you've got a house, so you most likely will be there for the long haul. And
yeah, but I'm
yeah.
already running out of room.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm already so we have to find another house soon.
Yeah.
No, no, I'm not
Oh,
gonna.
okay. Maybe build like a shed or something, and you just
Yeah, we don't have a big backyard, sadly. So
ah,
I've got a whole room for my movie collection, basically.
yeah, yeah.
But the records are in the living room and take up like a whole like corner of the living room. It's out of
Hmm.
control.
Yeah, I almost wonder if you could store them in the middle of the movie room. You know what I mean? Like, so you walk around it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But then I'd have to move them all upstairs, which is where the movie room
Oh,
is.
yeah, yeah.
I don't
It's
want
okay. It's okay. Sometimes I find it's good to like. This is how I've gotten with my movie collection is that I add stuff, but I'm like every 6 months I'll kind of go through and like get rid of things because it's like I want a big collection, but I also want it curated. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I definitely, because I don't buy, I try to buy based on my curation.
Mm,
So I very rarely get rid of anything, but
mm.
that also means it's sort of growing out of control all the time.
Right, right.
Um,
Well, I'm sure if you ever had to sell it off, you could make a lot of money. I'm sure you've got like a
Well,
lot
I
of
think
rare
it's sort of
stuff.
the
So.
idea, isn't it? That's one of the nice things about having a sort of collection of physical media is that
Hmm.
if you find yourself in a spot, that is something, that is an asset that you have that you can, monetize.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I should probably let you go though, because we are coming up on 2 hours. So I'm probably
Yeah,
going to edit out
probably.
some of the music chat there, although some of it is pretty interesting. So maybe
Yeah, no, it's
I'll leave
fine.
some in.
I say leave it in. What the hell?
Okay, why not? I mean, honestly, when it comes to editing, I usually just edit out stuff that like people actually didn't want included. Like
Sure,
I'll
sure.
just say like, oh no, or I don't know, like a weird mistake or something. So
Right.
yeah,
Oh, wait, I shouldn't have revealed this or that or whatever. Yeah.
you didn't really reveal anything too much. So if you want, now's your chance.
No, you're not tricking me. No? Keeping those cards close to the chest. Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, one last time then. October 20th is the Flash pre-order. And then on October 31st is the actual Halloween sale, which will be going on for a week. And, if you've been listening to this whole thing, you probably have a list of at least 10 movies to check out from there. So,
Yeah. And then our catalog is pretty huge. So there's plenty of other great stuff to look at and see and take a chance on. Take a chance on something. It's a good chance to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. What was it? Private Vices, Public Virtues?
Yeah. Private Vices, Public Virtues, Spider, and Strangler versus Strangler.
Okay.
And then all the ones that you picked are really terrific too, and will all be on sale.
And Lady Terminator, if this is your first time going to Mondo Macabro's site, Lady Terminator and also The Fan, are those both available?
Oh yeah. Okay. Both are still in print. Yeah.
Okay.
And the fan is like a flagship title for us by now. So
I think that those like that and Lady Terminator, if you got those and those are your first like Mondo releases, you'd be like set. You'd be like, okay,
that would be a good starter pack.
Yeah, like okay, where do we go from here?
Yep.
Okay.
Agreed.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Jared. I'll let you know when this is ready to go.
Great. Thanks for having me. Really had a good time.
Yeah. Have a good day.
Bye.